I need to rethink my approach because I have the courage to tell everyone.
And I thought I wouldn't graduate.
Much more competitive space. I wasn't always independent. I made my first big and autonomous decision at age 25. Anything that happened before that, I always had the guidance of my parents. And that's great because I had so many interests, and having a path for me made it easier for me to actually achieve something in such an early age. But today we're going to talk with someone, probably one of the most successful, if not the most successful person that I've known with my batchmates, because she has exhibited the values of leadership, courage, being able to follow through those values through the results. And I saw that when she made a decision to go to a prestigious university in Manila, Ateneo de Manila University, finishing her master's degree in Harvard University, and functioning at such an early age as an executive in a nonprofit organization in the Philippines. This is less of the institution, like it's not the institution themselves, but the idea of something that is seemingly unachievable, especially when you're young and you're just trying to figure things out, to mainly values how she went about that decision, her influences, any barriers, and the steps she took in order to be consistent, even in adulthood. Please welcome my friend.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
Thank you for spending time with us. So before we begin, can you tell us about yourself so that our audience can get to know you?
Hi everyone. My name is Love. As Kai very kindly mentioned, we were in high school together. Currently, I live in Paris, France. But prior to that, I am just a small town girl. So actually, I come from a lower income household. My parents are the only college graduates amongst their siblings. And actually, I think I'm the first generation to have a master's degree. And my career basically spans working for the government, the private sector, in civil society. And currently, I'm a burgeoning entrepreneur. I just started my social enterprise that is specialized in international development consulting.
That's amazing.
So, that's my brief background. I don't know if you want me to talk about my siblings, et cetera, or that's enough.
Okay na to siya. I did not know when you mentioned that you were the first one to get a master's degree and also come from a low-income family, because the assumption, I've always thought that you had a farm somewhere. Was that true?
So we had. So the thing is, my parents, they started a business. They basically supplied rattan raw materials to furniture companies in Cebu. They also had for a time a pharmacy. And because they sourced rattan from Mindanao, we did have a house in Mindanao, and we had like rice fields and some farms. Unfortunately, with the nature of the business, boom and bust, the financial crisis of 2008, they lost everything almost. And I consider it low income because there was a lot of insecurity. Like growing up, we moved maybe 7 times until I was in 5th grade, because we had to move for my parents' business, or when their business was doing well, we had a nicer house. When the business wasn't doing well, we had to downgrade to a not so nice house. But they did, through just hard work and determination, they were able to send all of us, we're 5 siblings, to private schools, right? Mm-hmm. So, and in the Philippines, that's a big deal. So we were middle class, but I would say lower middle income rather than like squarely at the middle because of all the instability of their business.
I understand quite a bit why when we were in high school that you were determined to achieve something at that very early age. Have you always thought to pursue a degree outside of Cebu? And did it ever cross your mind, it might give me better opportunity because of I would say, your experiences in childhood? You saw that getting a more stable situation in that sense, that the opportunity is in Manila. I'm just trying to understand how it came about. Like, was Manila always the plan?
So I guess short answer, it wasn't always the plan. I wanted to become a lawyer. That was because for like a family reason, they had like a land issue that my family has always had. And so I thought I could help my family by becoming a lawyer. And so I was actually fine with taking up like pre-law in Cebu. And I think it was junior high. That was like the height of, the nursing craze. All our teachers said, take up nursing, everything. So, but I mean, I knew that it wasn't really for me because I cannot really stand the sight of blood or like bodily fluids. So I'm like, okay, I won't have a future there. So I think there was also like an honest to goodness evaluation of what I can and cannot do, right? And what I like and what I don't like. And then, frankly, because only my parents graduated from college, I didn't really have a lot of role models like around me. And those who graduated from college really studied in Cebu, like made their life in Cebu, and they're doing pretty well. So I didn't think that Manila was the goal. If I remember correctly, Kai and I were in the STAR section, right? So a lot of our classmates were getting all these requirements to apply to universities, getting recommendation letters from teachers. And I was like, oh, what's going on? And they were all like applying to UP, and then Ateneo. And I was like, well, it seems like that's a thing, so I'll just apply. Or maybe there was like that competitive aspect of me because I'm like, well, if they're applying, I mean, there's no reason why I can't apply or why I shouldn't apply, right? Like,
so you're actually were not immune to the craze.
Yeah, so I wasn't immune to the craze of like following the bandwagon. So I followed the bandwagon of applying to other universities. I applied to Ateneo de Manila University and then University of the Philippines, Diliman. And I also took the test in University of San Carlos. While going with the flow, going with the bandwagon, that also kind of like ignited the fire in me because I was like, okay, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to do political science. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I go near to the center of power? And that's still Manila. So it made career sense. And I am not claiming that I was already that wise and like calculating when I was that young, but I knew what I had, right? Like I didn't have a lot of network. I didn't know any of the like politicians. We had classmates, their parents worked for the city hall. So they're very well connected. I didn't have those connections. So I'm going to have to make the connections myself if I want to succeed. So yeah, I took the tests. I got into all the universities I applied to and ended up going to Ateneo.
I would have never thought that you just came to that decision because either an influence or it just came out of nowhere or you even applied to 3. It wasn't definite. Were you scared? Did you take into account when you go outside Cebu, the cost is a consideration and even having some doubts on yourself? Like we know that you're skilled. You know yourself that you're skilled, but can you meet the expectation going into a different place and a much more competitive space?
Yeah. So was I afraid? Yes, because, I mean, there's fear. There's always fear. And I think that's the reason why I applied to 3 schools. I mean, you need to hedge and make sure that you get in. If you fail in 2, hopefully you get in 1 and then you still get to go to college. In terms of mindset, I'm quite a defensive pessimist. I always think of the worst case scenario and then I plan accordingly. So the fact that I applied to 3 schools instead of just 1 is an indication of that. Also, when I applied to these 3 schools, actually all the courses because you have to indicate the major you're interested in when you apply. And it was so varied. Like there was political science and economics in Ateneo. And then in UP, there's political science also, but then the second one was library science. Then in University of San Carlos, I did accounting. Whichever school I get to, then that will dictate my major, right? Because I was interested in a lot of things. So again, hedging, right? And then also, yeah, just leaving some of the things to chance in the sense that, yeah, like wherever, and then I will just follow. So, but going back to your question about whether there was fear, I actually want to credit my parents. They were very optimistic. Even throughout all the insecurities growing up, they've always put up a brave front. They always like put their children first. I never felt like if I needed something for school, they couldn't provide it. So I didn't think that money was going to be an issue, but it did become an issue towards my last 2 years in Ateneo because that was when their business was starting to go south. And I thought I wouldn't graduate, but they somehow made it work and they were able to pay for, the school. But after graduation, I was on my own. I started working 3 days after graduation because I knew my circumstance. When it comes to, say, competence, I'm not gonna lie, like the first year in Ateneo, I was feeling a bit insecure. So in Ateneo, you have, like, when you take the test, they stream you to basic math, regular math, and advanced math. So I was in basic math. And I was like, oh my gosh, why am I in basic math? I was like, I graduated second in my high school batch. Like, I'm not basic. So, like, I couldn't accept the fact. But I mean, there was a reason. And it was true. I was in basic math because I wasn't taught it. So I didn't know it.
I'm glad to hear that there is a source why you were actually able to follow through because your parents put up a brave front. Because for me, my experience too, my parents always said, oh yeah, you can do it. I know sometimes it's not true they do that, but still they try to support me as best as I could, despite their, limitations in terms of giving support. So you've achieved so much, right? My challenge is trying to manage expectations in the real world as well. Did you ever at one point say, maybe I'm expecting too high, I need to manage it to the realistic part? Have you ever done that, or are you at that point as well? Because it can cause frustration from someone who's trying to really, just be above standard at all times.
Bob Dylan says we contain multitudes. So there are different aspects of myself, like one that's really very ambitious. They say aim for the for the moon, like it's a moonshot. So, but then I've always, I don't know, I had this mantra in my head, like, no, I reach for the stars, and if I don't reach the stars, at least I get the moon, but it's still high, right?
Yeah.
So there's that aspect. I don't know, like maybe if the overly confident aspect of part of me. But then there's also like a lot of insecurity, because I knew that, especially after my parents' business like went bankrupt, I knew that I couldn't not make it. Like I couldn't not succeed. I had zero safety net, basically.
I love that. Yeah.
But the other part of me, definitely, I have a pretty clear idea of who I am and what I can and cannot do. And so I think that already tempers my expectations towards myself. Like I constantly achieve consistent high impact stuff. But I know that I'm also limited when it comes to like my context, right? So I had to move to Paris to be with my husband, and that I think like took my career on a different trajectory compared to if I had stayed in the Philippines. I would be doing something different now. Your ambition, I think, is limited by your competence, your context. And I think it's only fair to kind of put things in perspective. That way, there's not too much pressure in yourself. And also, I wanted to add that what really helped as well to kind of get a seemingly consistent career is also the fact that I am not really afraid to ask for help if I cannot do it. I always reach out to my mentors, to my friends. I always pick their brain, and that helps.
You mentioned that you are able to manage expectations like for yourself. Like you can be so ambitious, aiming high, but then also take into consideration your environment and the current situation you're in. How about managing your expectation of others?
You mean other people's expectations on me, or
no?
What I expect from other people?
Correct. Because for me, it's very hard for me having so high of an expectation. It's difficult to make adjustments because it can get confusing. Like, oh, I thought this is the norm, but actually it's not the norm. For example, achieving an excellent project and then having a really good outcome, but that is actually not the norm, like the reality of it all. How do you manage your fire of achieving stuff?
Right. So let me preface by saying that I'm referring to like my experience as executive director of an NGO, like just as a jump off point. I think that it's in that sense, in a way, it was easy, because even though in terms of level of competence, it's not the same, but we were able to reach a certain level of like employer reputation that we were really able to hire the best, right? So there was really good potential amongst the team. But competence does not necessarily equal motivation, right? But because it's in the nonprofit space, it's in the development space, we assume that those people who go into the sector actually care about the cause. Because otherwise you could like go to like the big corporations, earn so much more versus, working for an NGO. Although we did pay pretty competitively for the sector. And so what we did to manage motivations was really to remind them constantly of our why, right? Why are we doing this? What is the reason why we are working so hard, like losing sleep? And just constantly reminding them of our why. It's to improve Philippine education. It's for our scholars. It's for the communities we serve. Constantly reminding them of that, I think, helped. So I also have an economic mindset. So I know that people respond to incentives and disincentives. So we also employed that pretty effectively, I thought. And now, like, I guess zooming out of that specific context and just, let's say, in personal settings.
Yes,
right?
Like the one you mentioned is you have more like authority. So that's like almost, you can definitely
I was the
ask
manager.
for more. Correct. But what if it's in a setting where there's no clear hierarchy or no formal hierarchy,
right,
or authority to function that way? I would like to understand that, how you manage that.
So first, if there is no formal, like say, hierarchy or like authority over the person, and this I think applies to family members, friends.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also like very clear about what my role is, so I don't want to be frustrated, right? Like I'm just gonna give my advice and then take it or leave it. Unless it has direct impact on me and like my day-to-day life, then I would be a bit more insistent. But if not, I also know where my place is. Right? You know what? If I care about you, this is what I think. If you think otherwise, that's your life, and it's a bit sad to say, but you do you. But say, for example, my siblings, right? Because I care about them and I want them to succeed. And we have, what I do is like, I remind them about our roots. I remind them about the sacrifices our parents have made, like the sacrifices I've made, not to like count all the help I've given them. More of like, like, no, Kai, I believe in you. That is why I invested in you and your education, because I know that you can do it and, you have so much potential. And then just reminding them of our circumstances. Look, our parents are getting older. They don't have pension because in the Philippines, we don't have that, especially for those, entrepreneurs didn't do voluntary contributions. We have responsibilities as their children, and therefore we need to all pitch in. And that, I think, motivates them to do well.
I get your point, where if it does affect you, whether indirectly or directly, that you're more invested in making sure everybody's going the same direction. I don't know if you remember this. During high school, we had formal dance. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah,
What is that? Graduation ball.
Yeah, and everyone was arguing, why are we dressing up this way? Like formal, because it's formal, right? And I still remember the scene where you said, well, it's the only time we're going to do it and we want to make it special. And I feel like as I was witnessing that moment, how do you tolerate such pushback? I could never see myself doing that back when I was younger. And that's why I wanted to tap into your wisdom, how you were able to push that barrier in so many ways.
So it's funny because I think I'm a people pleaser, but then a lot of people say that no. Actually,
I can say no.
Yeah, so I thought actually, so all this time I thought I was a people pleaser, or I still am. Sometimes I have a hard time saying no, or I don't want to offend people. I don't like awkward situations. So not necessarily, it's not like I want to please others. I just, don't want to offend them. So I feel like that's a very bare minimum kind of thing. So maybe that's why. And also actually, looking back in high school, I realized that I think I just did my thing. I think I had a pretty good circle of friends. I had my own hobbies. I read a lot. I have a lot of cousins, so it's not like I was alone. I had social. I had enough social stimulation. So I didn't necessarily feel like I had to please classmates to fit in. I just kind of did my thing. And I knew that I was doing it for a cause anyway. It wasn't just I guess in reference to what you said. Although I don't really remember having said that. Oh my gosh. But maybe I guess I did.
Yeah, I still remember you actually being on the platform.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and trying to I wasn't actually, ironically, I was involved in that dance because I was in the US on vacation. But I still remember that moment, how do you do that? How do you have the courage to tell everyone?
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
this is important.
So I guess it's that. I guess I'm not that much of a people pleaser. And I guess I say what I believe in. When I believe in something, I'm not really afraid to say what I believe in. And I think probably that's also the reason why I don't necessarily talk behind people's back. For me, I just make it a rule that, if I cannot say it to your face, if I cannot say it to your face, I'm not going to say it.
You pointed a good thing about the social circle that you have. Because you have that strong social circle, that if, for example, one group or one person doesn't like what you're doing, or just doesn't like what they're hearing from you, then it's okay because you already have a stable group of people. I never thought of it that way, but now that you mentioned it, the social piece, or knowing that you have best friends that you're able to speak out, especially if the ties are loose. Obviously you're not close with everyone, and I always go back to high school, our experience, and the decisions that you made after that, because it's such a foundational thing. And I always only focus on just, playing sports. You
were pretty good.
I was just thinking about having fun. Like I said, I relied a lot on my mom to make the decision for me. I was such an obedient child. Whatever she told me, I took it from college to master's to even the company that I applied for after graduating. I was so guided. And so it's so amazing to me to see that you are able to carry it out in high school and then as an adult. So do you feel like it got easier and that your values were stronger?
Let me say that, definitely, your early years are foundational. And I think also probably the way I was raised helped a lot. I remember my dad so you make a mistake and then you get punished. But I could negotiate my punishment. My dad would always say explain to me why you shouldn't be punished. And then I would give my reasoning. Yes.
There was an option.
But I would still get punished, but the severity of the punishment is lesser. So I could argue my way out of a punishment or get a lesser punishment. So I think because I was raised that way, I knew that I could argue my case, right? When it comes to the values, my values have not really changed. I value respect, and this is why I don't like offending people. I value community and charity, helping each other out, and bayanihan. I value freedom a lot because also growing up, I didn't have a path set out for me. Because basically, so my parents were entrepreneurs. I was the first one in my family to do whatever I wanted to do. So for me, it was freedom that they afforded me. It's really something that, like I still hold dear to this day. I don't like when I feel like I'm stuck and I'm like, there's like that path dependency. Although in terms of staying true to them, that is what is a bit more difficult. I guess when values compete, that's when you have to be, I think, more intentional. You need to put in a bit more work in making sure that you stay true to your values. But yeah, I don't think my values have changed. They're just making sure that you live them is the tricky part.
From the statements that you said, I got three things. It's funny how you said you don't like sticking to a path, that's what I like. I never thought of it that way, that sticking to a path could be counterproductive. Because to you, by being open and flexible, although you have planned, you're able to pivot quickly. An example would be you moving to France, right? It's, even with a successful situation in the Philippines, you're well connected already. It was a decision you made, but I like that. I need to rethink my approach, because I'm more of a planner, and that's how I grew up. So listening to you to say that you don't like sticking to a path is new to me too.
Oh, no, it's important to plan, huh? I do have a plan, a rough plan.
Right.
I kind of like see my life path as like that of the stock market. Parang there will be dips, hills and valleys, like, it goes up, but the overall direction is up. So that way, otherwise, it's like, because when you stick to a plan too much, I mean, there are so many things that life throws at you, right? You can't control. So I also don't want to be unhappy. Yeah,
you can miss out on a lot of things. And I love talking to people, and I love recording this, because every time I ask you a question, it's always because of your upbringing and how your parents handled you. You still, and I think we always will, credit who you are today to your parents, because you always go back to that. There's a pattern. Now I learned a lot about parenting just by talking to you.
So just on that, like, just a bit of a caveat. So yes, like, definitely they're very influential in my life. The things that they did that I don't agree with, I also avoid, right?
Right. Right, exactly.
So it's not just the lessons they taught me, but it's also the things that I observed that I didn't like, that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to do that, or like, I don't think that's a good idea. And so I did learn from them. And I guess it's also, like, you're right. I credit my parents a lot, but I also actually credit not just my parents, but all the adults, like my mentors who've helped, let's say, surrogate parents in a way. Like my ex-bosses were like that. My peers, also, I learned a lot from them. So but not to say that I didn't work hard, because I also did. But of course, I don't think it's all on me. Yeah.
And that's why you're on the show. I know we mentioned a lot of values that you took on, and I think you brought out a good point there, that it's the responsibility piece. So you have values that you stay true as much as you could. But when there are other people involved and you have a strong sense of responsibility, you kind of have to mold it in the current context you're in. And so what would you say, aside from hard work, as you've mentioned, is an important value? I would say if cookie is not the first one, what would it be? Or if cookie is the first thing, like you have to work hard, what would be the other value to pair with that in order to remain consistent, like throughout? Because to me, the way I look at it, I go back to high school, right? But you maintain that consistency throughout. To this day, even when you're living in a different country, adjusting to a new culture, taking on different roles, taking on different jobs, going to different institutions to study, it's just amazing to me. And I would like to understand like your mind space in that regard.
Yeah. So I would say Kugi is one. This is is number one. Like, I work hard, and I think it's very important, especially now with technology. You want to make things easier, and you want to like use shortcuts and all of that, right? But I think process is important. Hard work is important. Kugi is important. The second one, I think, would be ambition. Having high expectations for yourself. I think that sometimes we shortchange ourselves. We kind of like belittle ourselves. We think that we cannot do this, or we limit ourselves. And I think that, as long as you work hard, so you have Kugi, so like self-awareness. Maybe this is like a 1.5, like self-awareness, like, you're also objectively like aware of who you are and what you can do and your competence. Then that value of like ambition, high expectations for yourself. I think that would be like a good recipe for success, I would say. I'm not saying that I'm really successful. You're so kind. You're so kind to say that I'm like consistently successful. I'm not. I mean, I've had a lot of setbacks, actually. And maybe that's for another conversation. But yeah, I guess from the outside it looks like it. But I've had a couple of setbacks, actually. Like, the experiences that hurt me a lot, and I didn't know how to rebound from them. In the end, I think like hard work, a lot of luck also. I'm very lucky. I had a lot of luck and a lot of help.
Thank you, love, for sharing your insight and how you went about your life. And I'm hoping to actually put you together with the other executives, because that's just also a curious place to be in, like how you climb the ranks and how you think about being at that level of responsibility. I don't plan on
Cool.
being that, but I would like to understand how you got to that level.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, love.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Kai. It was so nice chatting with you. And also the trips down memory lane.
Yeah.
Thanks.